The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to Precise for SQL Server. My name is David Owen. I'm the product manager, and today we're going to talk about how Precise can help you in terms of identifying your locking issues within SQL Server. So what we're going to cover today is to show you where the locking is occurring, identify the blocker sessions and the sessions that are locked, show some actual locking trees as well for those sessions, show which statements are actually running under the session, because that's obviously vitally important to understand from an application perspective as to where what the actual statements are running, and to understand from an application point of view, obviously what the impact is of that. We can, by knowing the statements, we can also identify which programs are running. So if your customers or your users are saying, hey, we've got a particular problem with such and such program, you can tie that back to the statement with Precise. And likewise, again, if you've got a user again has experienced certain blocking issues or locking problems, again, you can tie that back with Precise and tie that back to the sessions and statements, etc. So Precise is pretty comprehensive in terms of what it shows. And with me, second, let's see. Go to the next. I'm just trying to get to the next slide. Here we go. So Precise, just to let you know, we support all versions of MS SQL. It's everything from SQL 2008 all the way up to SQL 2019. We're also on the cloud as well, so we support SQL Azure and also AWS as well. And to give you some idea of what Precise monitors, we monitor everything. So everything that's happening on your instance, we show everything that's going on from a SQL or application level. So that's your SQL segments, that's your programs, that's your users, the actual machines, the application machines that they're running on. We show that level of information. We also show what is happening from an object perspective. So you can imagine if you've got hot tables or hot indexes within your database instance, we can actually show you from an object perspective which ones are very hot and which ones are consuming the most time in terms of activity. And then finally, at an instance level, we show all those major wait events that are occurring. So those things that are happening on your instance could be consuming issues. So that's lock-in issues, login issues, all sorts of things, whether it be an I/O problem, CPU, etc. Again, with Precise, we can show you everything that's going on there with that. Okay, and one of the things that is great about Precise is that once we've identified a particular problem area for you, then we can come back and actually show you some recommendations. We can show you recommendations maybe at the SQL statement level, or even more so at an actual table level as well. So things like index creations, etc. And as a result of that, we can also tell you whether those statements will improve as a result of those index recommendations, let's say, for example, but not just the statement that we've identified, but also other statements. So other statements within your workload, you can see what the impact of those. And that's one of the really, really neat things about Precise, is it's able to show you that level of information. Okay, so let's get to the demo and let's show you what's happening here within Precise. So this is the Precise dashboard. We just log in. You can see it's a web browser logged in, and this is what we call the Precise dashboard. It just gives you a view in terms of our instances, and what the activity is here. And here you can see quite clearly, if you look at the chart, that most of our time we've got here is in lock-in. We've got some locking issues, and that's what we're going to explore shortly. Below that, we have what we then call our findings. And the findings are those major events that are occurring on your database instance up during the time frame that we've chosen. So you can see we've got a number of findings there, and they're all color-coded depending on the percentage impact that they actually have in your database instance. So let's have a look at this and sort of see what we've got. So you can see already, I'll just sort of quickly show you, we've chosen the lock-in perspective here within our activity tab, and we can already start to see the lock-in trees that we've got. And below that, we can see the sessions that we have. So let's just go across to one of the sessions here. There we go. So this is what we call the current tab. Current tab in precise is basically telling you everything that is happening within your SQL instance in the last couple of minutes, and it's showing you what the major activity is. So you can see here from my current tab that it's telling me I've got 15 sessions that are running, 6 of them are active, and I've got 4 log sessions here. And again, if I look at the inner SQL time, I can see that most of that time is in log weights. And again, below, if I look at the actual sessions, you see that by looking at the bars, that we can see there's a lot of log weights going on. So we can actually look at this in a little bit more detail and see what's happening. So we can see from a connection perspective what's happened, so we can see which program the sessions are running under. And actually see which database it belongs to. And we can see different things like the client process ID, when we started sampling this, whether it's any parallelisms here, etc. I look at our MS SQL, this sort of breaks it down to the different weights. But then lock-in, obviously that's what we're really interested in here. So this is what we can see what is causing the lock-in. So it can tell us which particular user is actually blocking us, which particular program is blocking, and also what the blockchain is, i.e. what the lock tree is. So which particular sessions are locking other sessions out. And it also tells us what type of resource we're waiting for, and also what type of lock weight as well. And then you can see finally this is the actual key of that particular lock. So if we were to go here and look at our actual locks, here we can see the actual lock trees. So you can see that we've got session 68 here is our lock-in session, then we can see the other ones that are impacted by that. So session 63, 67, 69, and then you notice I've got another section here that's actually the start of another lock-in tree. Again, you can see session 70 here, 65, 64, etc., etc. And you can see, we can see quite quickly what is actually happening with regards to those particular locks. I've also chosen here what we call the locked objects option. If I click on here with the locked objects option, okay, it's telling me which particular sessions are actually locked under that particular object. So this is useful, particularly if you've got a hot object, to see which of those sessions are actually locked underneath there. I click on one of these guys, and you can see I've got information around this particular session. It's telling me what status it's in at the moment. You can see whether it's suspended or not, how long it's been running, whether it's idle, number of transactions, as I said. And we can sort of see here, you can tell me that this session is also blocked by 67 here. The lock weight here again is sort of showing me the information with regards to that particular session. And then finally below that, these are all the statements that are running under this session itself. So these are the actual statements where that are running, and you can see how long they've been running for. So you can see again, this particular one's been running for 2 minutes and 44 seconds, and it's giving me a view as to what that particular SQL query is that's executing within that. I can look at this in a little bit more detail in terms of, again, the breakdown for that segment. And so again, I can see that most of my time is in that login. And again, here I can sort of see how many physical IOs I've got, how much CPU, whether there's any power is running, etc. for this. So I click on this particular guy here. This is telling me what that statement is, and just more information around that particular segment as well. Okay, so this is just allowing us very, very quickly to see what is actually happening within our locking tree and seeing what is consuming our time here, and you know, therefore what we can potentially do to improve things, and therefore look at whether there's something that, you know, from an application perspective we can sort of look at and help to target. Okay, so you notice we've got the statements. We can also identify from the batches, so it's actually telling me which batch as well it belongs to as well. And again, I can see from a procedural perspective what is consuming most of that time. So let's just go back a little here. Okay, so as I said, we've got the locks here. Let's just click on that, go back to our sessions here. Oh, here we go. So again, you can see from our sessions perspective, we can see what is happening. Stay with me a second. Okay. Right. Okay. So, and we can sort of look at the sessions and we can sort of see what is some detail about this particular session. So again, I can see what session is there and some detail around that particular statement. So again, as I said, this is really helpful in terms of showing us what is happening overall in our current time frame. So the other thing that Precise does very, very well, it actually helps you to see where you've had lock-ins historically, and to be able to see what is happening with that as well. So let's go back here for a second. And let's go across to guys here. Okay. So right. Okay. So again, this is where we started from. So this is our dashboard, and again, you can see where that time is spent. So by clicking on the activity tab, this actually helps to bring up and show us what is happening in our particular instance. So this chart here is very similar to what we saw in the dashboard. And again, we can sort of see that most of that time is in log wait. You can see a little bit of CPU time. There's a little bit of log wait time there as well. But again, most of that is in log wait. And if we're looking at this, not really knowing where the particular problem is, then well, here we can see quite clearly which database is consuming the most resource, and therefore we can start drilling down and understanding what's happening. And once I click now onto that database, I can then look to see what is happening at a statement level, and I can see below that it's showing me all those statements that are running have been running in this last 8 hours. Notice this is my time frame here, and I can expand that time frame at to 1 day, to 2 days. We can expand that time frame out and sort of shows what is happening on there. As I expand that time frame, then obviously the bars will change as a result of it. So let's just go back to our 8-hour window here for a second. And with Precise, you can actually keep historical data for up to 3 years. So we accumulate and aggregate that data over time, and we are able to show you what is happening, what has been happening in your database instance over that period of time. So again, you notice from my activity, if I click here on login, I can choose login again. So first of all, on the right-hand side, we can see where that time is spent, and we can see what type of lock we've got here. So we can see whether it's key locks, row locks, table locks. So therefore, whether they've been escalated or not, and see what's happening. And likewise, here we have a very similar picture to what we saw before. So with regards to this, we're able to see the locking tree. And again, we can sort of see what's happening with that locking tree. You can see that obviously 52 here is preventing a lock on 53, whereas if I look at this one here, 66, you can again start to see that it impacts other ones as well. And you notice we've got quite a large number of different locks that are taking place here within that. If I click here on sessions, okay, so again, what I've got here now is the list of the sessions, so you can see what is actually happening here within that. If I click, for instance, on session 66 here, and you notice that session 66 is the one that we've got highlighted here. If I click on session 66, it's now telling me what SQL segments that it's running. So these are the SQL segments that are specific to this particular session. And you notice as well that this particular bar chart, again, is specific to what is happening within that session as well. So again, I can drill down into that segment. I can see which batch it belongs to, and I can see things like blocker sessions as well. But if I notice with that statement, so we can see that this is our statement, 54178. Oh, there we go. So I've chosen this 54178 here. You can see this is the time spent within that. In this view, I can see now which particular program is actually waiting, or which particular program is impacted by this login. So this is very helpful, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of being able to determine whether you've got a problem from an application perspective. And this is something maybe as DBAs you can pass back to your developers or the DevOps guys in terms of looking after your the application and say, hey, such and such a program is experiencing login. But if we actually wanted to find out what login is experiencing that particular login, again, it's going to identify all our logins that are being impacted by this login. So we've been able to do this quite quickly just by drilling down very, very easily within Precise to be able to show what's happening. And again, you know, if I drill down into this particular login, it's obviously going to tell me this is the statement that we've got within that. So I can also determine what machine that this is run on. I can see what particular machine that is running. So with Precise, we're able to slice and dice this data in a number of different ways, and being able to show you, what is happening, not just from a statement perspective, not just from a program perspective, but also from a user perspective or from an actual machine perspective as well in our particular case too. Let's go back here for this particular guy. The other thing that I can do, you notice here with this statement, is I can click the tune button. And what the tune button will do is it will actually look at our SQL segment, and it will come back with an execution plan, look at the details within it, and also, okay, we haven't got one in that particular case, but probably because it's a more recent one. So we can sort of tune things and have a look to see what is actually happening on that statement, and see if there's potentially any recommendations for that. So we've got a database. So I said we've got our sessions that we were looking at. The other thing we can do is we can look at from a locked object perspective. So you can see here I can determine or I can identify what particular objects are experiencing locking issues, and I can click on those objects, and again, you notice it's telling me exactly when that particular lock-in has occurred for these objects, and also what segments are running against these objects as well. So again, this is specific to that particular object. So if I wanted to look at that statement, again, it's telling me which particular batch it belongs to, or again, if I wanted to, I can see what particular program it belongs to as well. So again, I've just got another different way in terms of being able to identify what's actually happening within that. Okay, let's just go back here within that. Let's go back to our sessions here. And there we go. So what we're able to do is we're actually able to go through these lock-in trees and really understand what is happening underneath each of these, and basically see what statements are running, and therefore what the impact is under those particular sessions, and again, see if this is something that is common throughout the particular instance, and therefore, something you can obviously pass back to your developers, okay, in terms of where we are with regards to that. Bear with me a second. Okay. Yeah, so again, what we're able to do is we're able to show what is actually happening throughout, not in the lock tree, but the sessions and the segments level as well. Okay. So let's have a look at other aspects that we've got here within Precise. So we have, let's click on this guy here. Oops. That. Okay. So one of the other things that we've actually found that with Precise as well is, and potentially could be caused by with an impact here in terms of lock-in, is there could potentially be a knock-on effect with regards to the lock-in. And you notice here I've got a finding here that says high CPU rate, and we can see that it's regarded as a red finding, so it's particularly causing an issue. And what we can do here is we can actually dig down deeper into that particular finding and see what's actually happening. We click here on this high CPU weight. There we go. So what this is showing us is actually showing us that we've got a pressure here on our CPU. We can see that it's some averaging around the 20–25%. We can also see that it's consuming or waiting for our worker tasks and most of the details around that. If I click here on statements, it tells me what those statements are that are waiting for the high CPU tasks, and it tells me what particular segments are particularly impacted by this. So again, it's telling us that there's a potential knock-on effect here. If I click here on statistics, and with statistics, what we're able to actually show here is we're able to show the different IDs and be able to show what is happening overall in terms of those particular schedulers. So we can sort of see the number of tasks that are running here. We can see things like the current workers and active workers, and we can see that whether there's a queue here in terms of those particular schedulers, and also the load factor. Now, looking at that, that's basically telling me that everything is more or less okay. So there's no sort of queues there. There's nothing that's impacted by this. And but what it is sort of giving us an indicator of is that obviously the tasks are not being released fast enough, potentially again down to this lock-in issue that we've identified earlier in terms of what we've got within our application itself and what is happening there. So Precise is sort of able to give you that different view and just allow you to be able to see again what is happening overall in terms of your lock-in, the sessions, the statements, etc., and also what the impact is on the database objects as well. Okay, so if we've got any further questions, I'm happy to answer them or open the floor up to them as well. One of the things I just wanted to show as well is what we're able to show with Precise is we're able to show exactly where the locks are occurring. Okay, we're able to show you exactly what particular process ID that's causing that blocker session. Now, what we can do is you can obviously potentially kill the session, but what you're doing there is you're really treating a symptom rather than the cause itself. And with all the information that we're showing you under Precise, with the sessions, either the locked sessions that are impacted by the blockers, we can actually show you what is happening from a statement perspective and an application perspective, and then that really gives you the opportunity to look at the logic and the design of that application, and also the database as well, and to therefore look at how you can reduce that locking and see what you can potentially do to improve that. And, you know, as I mentioned, we can show you those locking trees and the exact cause of what is happening here. So that's where we were able to show you mainly what's happening to you within the locking. And as I mentioned just now as well, we can also show that your locking can potentially have an additional impact on the instance, such as the CPU pressure that we were just seeing. So I wanted to say thank you very much, everyone, for attending today. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. If you want to find out some more information with regards to Precise, please go to the IDERA website and find out more about it. I look forward to speaking to you all soon. Thank you very much.